Firm Bagels is back. Firm Bagels is back.
Hello everybody, this is going to be a patch overview for patch 29.6 of Hearthstone Battlegrounds, the main draw being Buddies Returning. My name is Firm Bagels. I am currently rank 18 on any ladder at just above 14k MMR. I stream every day on Twitch if you'd like to check me out there, or you can subscribe here for more videos. So if you aren't familiar with the buddy mechanic in Battlegrounds, it is essentially each hero has their own specific buddy that is unique to them that they can get through their buddy button, which reduces in gold cost based on whether you won or lost the last round. So it gives a little bit more incentive to staying down and finding strength so that you can fill out your curve a little bit better with a cheaper buddy button. I think this is going to be a good shakeup for the meta. I think change definitely has been needed, and I actually enjoy buddy meta, so I'm pretty excited. I am going to be rating these cards just as kind of a little bit of fun predictions from a scale of 1 to 5 stars, and I'm going to try and keep it pretty brief just so I can get through all of it in a reasonable amount of time. And yeah, so we'll start with Captain Hogger's new buddy, which is Shining Sailor. I think this card's pretty good. I think the problem with it is it's a bit of a win more card. If you are getting enough pirates that you're going to get to this buddy without taking damage, you're probably already winning the game, and this is just kind of going to add on to that and make you a little bit more powerful when you're already powerful. If you're relying on this 5-drop buddy to dig you out of a tough spot, you're probably going to die, if I had to guess. It does make it a lot easier to go infinite, as you don't have to search for good pirates. They will just be often given to you in the shop. So I'm going to rate this 3 stars. I do think it's pretty good. I think it's very fun, but I think it's just too much of a win more card and doesn't shore up some of Hogger's more glaring weaknesses. Next, Inge's buddy, Solemn Serenader. I think this is a little bit of the opposite problem, where it makes her mid-game a lot stronger, it makes her hero power a lot more relevant, but I think she's still going to be stuck in the spot where she is, where it's very hard to bottom 8, it's very hard to get first, but it's very easy to get these middling positions, which can be fine at certain MMRs, but at certain MMRs you want to try and push for a win. So I think this is also a 3-star, but also for the opposite reason as the Hogger one was. Next, Rockmaster Voon's buddy, Akali Rock Rhino. At the end of every 2 turns, get a plain copy of the leftmost card in your hand. I think this is pretty good. It's just Voon, but more. And I think Voon is already a very strong character. I think he will remain strong. I'll give this buddy about a 4-star. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but it does help Voon in some of those middling rounds when you don't quite have your hero power online. I do think it's a pretty bad stat line and doesn't give you immediate value, so it may be a little harder to get out than I'm anticipating, but I think it's just Voon but better, and Voon is pretty good, so I'll give it 4 stars. Next, Stormlord's buddy, Varanus Stormlord's mount. I think this one, it is a 3-drop buddy, so it gives a little bit of tempo in the sense that it's an extra unit for a character that really doesn't have any mid-game tempo. You are pretty much all teched into your 7-drop spike. I'm still going to give this 2 stars. I think it's a little too RNG heavy for my liking. I think there will be games where you'll high roll the right upgrades and you'll be really happy about it and you'll be very strong. But I think it's a little too inconsistent. It's a little too reliant on RNG. I think people are going to play it because people like tier 7 units, but I don't think it's going to be particularly good in terms of actually winning. Next is Snake Eyes with Boxcars, a tier 4 mech. At the start of your turn, roll a 6-sided die, discover a tavern spell of that tier. I think this might be the strongest buddy they're adding. I think Snake Eyes is already an extremely strong character. You will be winning early fights because of your hero power and the extra units that can give you. So this will come out very early. I'm really scared of the scenario where you roll a 5 on the first turn you have this and you discover an Eyes of the Earth Mother. It's also a mech, so you can keep it till the end of the game. It's not some neutral unit that is useless on your board. It is very good. I think this is easy 5 stars. As I said, probably the best new buddy that I've seen. Next we have Dr. Holiday's buddy, the 9 Frogs, a tier 5 beast. After you buy a minion, get a random tavern spell of the same tier with 9 triggers. I think this has potential to be very good, but it's going to be very hard to get it out with a decent health pool. You do want a power level on Holiday already, so that helps a little bit, but you generally take some mid-game damage unless you high roll your hero power spells. So I think this hero is going to be even more reliant on that RNG off of your hero power, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think if you can get this effect out and you can be tier 4 or 5 with high health, I think it will be pretty good, but I don't see that happening all that consistently. So I'm going to rate this card 2 stars. It's just not going to be as easy to get out as you would like it to be. Tathlon Bloodwatcher with Reliquary Attendant. It's a tier 4 elemental. Once per turn after you cast a tavern spell, get a new copy of it. I've been going back and forth on this one. I think I'm going to give it a 4 star. I think Tathlon's going to be very strong with his buff that he got, as we'll see later on. And the way that I'm thinking of this is you can buy one really strong spell, cast it once, get an extra copy of it, and then possibly save it for the next turn, so you'd guarantee to have another strong one to cast next turn. It's not necessary that you have to use both copies on the same turn. So I think that little bit of being able to hold it in your hand and getting it out for free, as we'll mention with his buff, is going to be very powerful. I think Tathlon will be viable in this next patch. I'll give the buddy specifically, as I said, a 4 star. I'm going to skip over the duos buddies, as I'm not familiar with the game mode that much, and I don't play it very much. I may want to experiment with the game mode a little bit more with the addition of buddies, but for now, I don't feel very informed, so I'm not going to bother talking about it. Moving on to the updated buddies. First is Overlord Sourfangs, Draenor Sourfang, a tier 4. After you buy a minion, gain its stats. I think this card and this hero are going to be very bad. They're already pretty bad. The only scenario you really play Sourfang is with mechs, and I don't think this neutral minion is synergizing with mechs very well. It makes me want to play Demon Sourfang, but I think that's actually taking away the whole strength of Sourfang, where you don't have to invest into those sort of shop buffs and still get your shop kind of beefy. So I think this card and this hero are probably going to be worse than they already are, and they're already pretty bad. So this is a 1 star for me. I don't think I'm going to play Sourfang this patch pretty much at all. Next is Ragnaros the Firelord's buddy, Lucifron, a tier 5, 6/5. Your end of turn effects trigger an extra time. This has changed from it being triggered twice and triggered 3 times, so now it stacks with Drakari. I don't really see this as that powerful. I think the problem I have with Ragnaros isn't so much his buddy or even his hero power, but the fact that activating his hero power relies on your opponent's board to be specific things. You want them to have beasts, you want them to have undead, so it kind of takes the control out of your hands, which I think is a major problem. And I don't see this buddy as good enough to save it. I'll give it 1 star as well. I think Ragnaros is still going to be very bad. I do think undead and beasts are going to be more relevant in the patch, but I don't think that's good enough to make him relevant as a whole. Next we have Arana Starseeker's buddy, Sklib Demon Hunter. It's a tier 3, 4/4. After you buy a card, your next refresh costs 0. I think this is pretty easy 5-star slam. Synergizes with cheap spells, synergizes with cycling, which is so prevalent in the meta. We've already seen how powerful Recycling Wraith can be, with it being a 3-drop, 2 strong there, up to a 4-drop, still very strong for finding direction and seeing a lot of units so that you can kind of pick and choose. I think this is obviously just a better version of that, and that's going to be extremely powerful. Easy 5-star. Next is ixxdeee with Veilastraz, a tier 3 dragon, 4/4, battlecry and start of combat, give your other minions +2/+2. I think especially with ixxdee's new hero powers, we'll discuss in a little bit, this is going to be very helpful in stabilizing your mid game. The strategy that I'm thinking of with ixxdeee, since you want to be on tier 4 now, is just power leveling to tier 4 pretty much as soon as you can, and then using this as some sort of mid-game power spike to stabilize you a little bit while you're discovering dragons from your hero power. I think I'll give it a 4 star. It's not the most exciting buddy in the world. It does also let you play start of combat dragons in the mid-game and then transition into Caligos in the late game, as guaranteeing you have some sort of battle cry for it. So I think that's also worth being mentioned. But yeah, 4 stars. I think ixxdeee will be in a much better spot than she was this patch. I think she was pretty unplayable recently. Zephyrus with Firez, not much to say. It's the same thing with just a text update. Pretty easy 5-star buddy in my opinion. It's great to get if you can somehow cheat out buddies in a different way and you're not Zephyrus. It's amazing on Zephyrus. Yep, just controllable triples, extremely powerful, 5 stars. AFK Snack Vendor, tier 3 unit. It is tier 3 now, so it buffs itself. At the end of your turn, give your tier 3 minions +1/+2. I just don't see the viability of a tier 3 centric board, especially with Hooktail out. I just don't think this is really a viable strategy. Maybe she'll be good enough in the mid game that it doesn't matter and you can tier up while having passive scaling with this thing. But I don't see it. I think AFK is going to be bad this patch. This is a 1-star buddy for me. Pretty boring. Not all that powerful. Yeah, 1-star. Deathspeaker Blackthorn, Death's Head Sage, tier 5, Undead Quillbore, 3/6. After you get a blood gem, get an extra one. This one's really hard to rate for me because I think we have to understand first how strong Quillbores are going to be, and I really don't have the greatest read on that. I will spoil the removed minions a little bit and say they did remove Gem Smuggler, which doesn't matter so much with the sort of builds that Death's Head Sage would want to be put into, but it does make Quillbores a little less attractive to play, and I'm a little questionable on how strong they're going to be this patch. I think you're going to have to play a little bit more mid-range with Piper and Jazzer, as you already kind of did, but even more so since you can't really rely on Murk-Eye or Charlie to really... Maybe you can still rely on Charlie, but not Murk-Eye, Gem Smuggler to really buff up your board. Obviously, this still synergizes well with Blackthorn's hero power. Maybe that's good enough. I'm going to give it a 2-star. I think it could be better than I'm giving it credit for, but I don't really believe in the strength of Quillbores at this moment. Queen Azara's buddy, Imperial Defender, tier 4 Naga. Whenever you cast a spellcraft on a different friendly minion, you also cast it on this. Very fun buddy. I'm not sure how good it's going to be. It is important to note that it's on a different friendly minion, so when you're buffing the shop and you're trying to play Shellmental, it doesn't work on this. It still is going to buff up your crooner buffs. It's going to give you extra Divine Shield. I think it can be fine. I'm going to give it a 2-star in terms of power. I think it's really fun to play with, but I'm not sold on the power level of it right now, especially when Naga seems so reliant on buffing the shop rather than your actual board. Sire Denetharius, Shady Aristocrat, tier 3. 3/3, when you sell this, discover a quest. Complete it to get an 8 gold coin pouch. Is a change from a battle cry. I think it's a good change. No branch shenanigans, no Murk-Eye, no Rylak. You have to sell it. I think it's a pretty average buddy now. I'll give it 3 stars, but it helps Sire out quite a bit to have that gold injection. You're either playing a heavier quest that you haven't finished yet, and this helps you smooth out your curve there, or you're playing a little more of a tempo one and you need that little bit more gold to get you to an actual win condition on higher tiers. I think it's pretty good, much less good when it's not a battle cry. 3 stars. Terran Gorfiend Shadowy Construct, tier 5 Undead. Death Rattle, give this minion's maximum stats to another friendly minion. I think this card's going to be very good. I think Terran's going to be very good because I think Spawns are going to be very good. So I'm going to give this one 5-star just for how it fits into how I see kind of the meta playing, where I think Death Rattles and Spawns and Undead are going to be pretty strong, and this card fits into that very well, especially with other cards coming up. I'll give it 5 stars. It definitely could be worse than I'm thinking of it, because it's just tempo. It's only stats within combat, but I think it will be good enough that it deserves 5 stars. Queen Wagtoggle, Elder Taggawag, tier 4, start of combat. If you control 4 minions with different types, gain your minions' highest attack and health. I think Wagtoggle is very good right now. I think she's going to continue to be very good. I don't really like this buddy. I think it's going to give you more mid-game tempo in a character that doesn't really need any more mid-game tempo, but you are going to have a ton of it, so you really should be winning a lot of fights. Maybe you can get this golden buddy super early because you're going to be winning those fights, which may be helpful. Maybe it helps you spike a 6-drop that actually gives you direction. I'm going to give it a 2-star just because I think it's boring. I think you eventually sell it on most of your boards. And yeah, I'm pretty uninspired by it. I will probably still play Wagtoggle when it's offered to me, but it's not so much for the buddy itself. Next is Shutterwalk with Muckslinger, tier 5, 5/5 Battlecry, get a random Battlecry minion. Obviously very strong. I think it's not quite a tier 5 worth buddy, but I think they had to add in this little tax with Shutterwalk because you can hero power the Poetic Pen Pal. So if you could do that and this was cheap and you get this really early, it's probably really unfun. It probably makes sense that it's a 5 on Shutterwalk, but I don't think the effect itself is that crazy. Obviously with Brand and your hero power, you can get a ton of battle cries, which can then generate more gold, and it can get pretty silly that way. But it's a neutral minion. It's not actually giving you guaranteed direction. So I'm still going to give it 4 stars. It's a very strong minion on a very strong hero. It synergizes very well with your hero power and everything you're trying to do, but it is kind of boring. I don't think it's quite worth the 5-star battle or 5-star tier tag, but I see why it was necessary. Still a very strong card, still a very strong hero, 4 stars. Yogg-Saron, Hope's End, Acolyte of Yogg-Saron, tier 4 Murloc, 5/4. Every start of turn, you spin the wheel of Yogg-Saron, and some of them have changed. So there's one that casts 4 random tavern spells. I believe that was the one that buffed your shot before. Cast Pyro buff randomly to give minions 10/10 instead of 4/4. That's pretty insane. I can see that being really annoying in the early game if you hit that and hit a bunch of your minions. And then 2 friendly minions gain the stats of 2 other random friendly minions. I think this was the swap one. I think they changed that. That was good. I think this is really strong. It gives Yogg a little bit more tempo in the middle game. Obviously, he's really, really strong in the early game, so you can hopefully get this out pretty quickly. But the mid game, you could kind of falter as Yogg and not find direction or not find a win condition that makes up for the fact that you don't really have a hero power past turn 4 or 5. But this can give you that tempo mid game that can hopefully spike you into higher tiers and actually give you legitimate direction. I'm going to give it 4 stars. I think you might want to sell it in the late game because the 4 random tavern spells can grief you. That might be a little too much to worry about. Like, you just kind of take it if it happens. But I still think it's very strong, very good tempo, very good effect. I think the new wheel options are good changes. 4 stars. Dancing Daryl Asher the Haberdasher, tier 4, 2/2. After you sell a minion, gain a 1/1 hat that passes to a friendly minion when sold. I'm not going to talk too much about this one. I don't think it's very good. Yes, it gives you a cash out now instead of just gaining stats, but it's a neutral minion. I think if you're selling things at a rate that this is good, you probably have better things you could do. This is 1 star to me. I don't think I'm playing Daryl probably at all this patch. Maybe I'll try him a couple times. Next is HysteriA with Valithria Dreamwalker. 6/4. Whenever a dragon enters your warband or the tavern, gain +1/+1. I think it's alright. I don't think it's that great. There's obviously synergy with dragon buffs that you can use, and this maybe gives you some mid-game tempo that lets you get to 5 and roll for really good dragons. I don't think HysteriA is particularly good, though. I don't think it's going to be good with this. Ever since dragons have been nerfed with Amber Guardian going to 5, I think that's kind of hamstringed HysteriA, and I don't think this fixes it. I'm going to give this one 2 stars. HysteriA might be playable. I don't see this changing that much. Malygos Nexus Lord. Arcane Alteration replaces with a card from 1 tier higher, so just change from minion to card. Strong. I remember last Buddies. This was pretty good. I think it will continue to be good. It's a pretty boring effect. Just enhances Malygos's hero power. I think I'll give this one a 4 star. It's strong. There's just not much to talk about. You evolve things. It's good. Next is Lord Barovs with Barov's Apprentice, tier 4, 5/4. After you play a coin, gain 1 gold. Again, it's actually similar to the last one in that I don't think there's much to talk about. I think it's good. I think you kind of need to walk the line between having enough mid-game power to win fights. Maybe not mid-game power, but early game power to win fights so that you're getting this early enough so that you can spike while also holding coins so that when you spike, it's good enough. There is some skill expression there, but it's a pretty self-explanatory buddy. I'm also going to give it a 4. It's good. If you can win your bets, it's very good. Not much else to say. Rakinishu Lantern Tender, tier 4. At the end of your turn, get 2 Lantern Lights that give a minion stats equal to your tier. I want this hero to be really good. I'm not really sure why. I think this is much better than his old buddy, and I think his new hero power is much better than his old hero power. I think it could be okay. I'm going to give this a 3 star. I think it's kind of in the middle. Gives you some tempo. Gives you some cards that you can maybe use with other synergies. I think it's okay, but it's, again, pretty plain effect. Ticketus, Ticket Collector. I think this is just a text change. I think Ticketus will be very good with this buddy back in. It's a 5-star buddy for me. If you hold it for the right turns, you can spike super, super hard. Pretty easy 5. Boldrin, Master Gadrin. 6/5. Minions targeted by Spirit Swap also gain each other's health. I think this is good. I think it's very fun to play with for sure. To think about stuff like Trickster, stuff like Nightbane synergizing together now is pretty cool. I'm going to give it 4 stars. Not exactly sure how strong it's actually going to be, but it's definitely going to be fun to play with. I think there's some skill expression that could happen with it, so I'll give it 4. Lich Bazial, Unearthed Underling, Tier 3 Undead. Whenever your hero takes damage, rewind it and gain stacks equal to that amount. I think it's a very good buddy. I think this hero is going to be very good now that you have a guaranteed rewinder. You can get very high tier spells for 2 gold, which is crazy. It was already crazy with rewinder. With a better rewinder like this, I think it's going to be absolutely nuts. I don't think you're actually going to play self-damage demons, though, generally with Lich. I think you're just going to play whatever offered you and use this thing to cheat out really good spells. I'm going to give this 4 stars just all around. I think it's going to be one of the most consistent heroes in terms of getting power for cheap, being able to level pretty quickly, and getting this pretty early. Deathwing Sinestra, Tier 4 Dragon, 2/6. Whenever a friendly minion gains attack during combat, give it +1 health permanently. I think this is good. I think it does turn Deathwing just more into what he is, which is a tempo hero that's getting you a top 4, top 2, and can kind of get hard to get a top 1 just because you don't have a hero power that's actually giving you anything besides mid-game stats. I'm going to give it a 3-star. Pretty boring effect. Maybe there's some synergies I'm not quite seeing. I was thinking of Eliza with this would be really good, but I'm going to give it 3-star. It just makes Deathwing a little better at what he already does. Greyball, Wandering Treant, Tier 4, 2/5. Whenever a friendly taunt minion is attacked, give your minions +1 attack permanently. I'm really glad to see Greyball back, if only so that I can discover his hero power from the hero power discover when I have certain comps. But I also think this buddy is pretty good. I think he's going to be pretty good because I think spawns are going to be very good. So I'm going to give this a 4-star, mainly because I think Greyball is actually going to be in a decent spot. It definitely could be weaker than I'm thinking. Could be stronger than I'm thinking if there's certain combos that I haven't really taken into consideration, but I think it's actually a pretty exciting character to be reintroduced into the game right now. So some other changes besides the buddies were hero pool updates. ETC is back. That's awesome. Obviously with buddies coming back. The curator is banned in demon lobbies. So cultists will now resummon venomous minions with venomous. And they thought curator amalgam was a little too oppressive with that. Hero updates, Alexstrasza, Queen of Dragons. At the start of your turn, discover a dragon, unlocks a tier 4. I think this is going to be really strong, much stronger than our old hero power. It'll help you incentivize to get to 4 quickly, where you can buy strong dragons, discover strong dragons, and then those should hopefully give you tempo to get to 5 at least, to get the really good ones. Tathlon Bloodwatcher, every 4th tavern spell now costs 0 instead of just 1 less. I think this is going to be really strong. I really hope they tone down his armor quite a bit. I think he's going to be very strong. You can manipulate this in a lot of ways. There's already stuff that you can cheat out a lot of gold with, even on 2. Stuff like oil on 3, stuff like scope. I think he's going to be very strong. Rakinishu Tavern Lighting, I talked about this. You now get a lantern light instead of just buffing the minion. It's better. I'm not sure how much better. I'm actually going to probably play him quite a bit just to see how it is. I don't think it's that exciting of a change, but I kind of wish it was. Minion pool updates. So I think this is kind of where the biggest news, I think, obviously besides the buddies, comes in. Labor, augmented labor being removed, I think is actually a really big deal. I think they needed to do it because of how prevalent I think spawns are going to be. Bazaar Dealer, I think this killed self-damage demons. The biggest power spike you had with self-damage demons was buying Eyes of the Earth Mother, and you no longer have that. So I think that comp is semi-dead. Obviously, you can probably high roll into it, but I don't think you're going to go it very often. Dead Stomper, there's a better replacement for it. Faceless Disciple, I think that's kind of irrelevant. It was kind of annoying in some situations, but not the greatest card. Gem Smuggler is a big change. You can't do Battle Cry, end of turn, Quillbores anymore. Goldshell Warden, actually used sometimes when you had a bunch of beasts and needed tempo, but other than that, pretty irrelevant. Heedless Hoarder, there's some synergies with like Spellcraft Nagas that are gone now, and obviously tripling that was pretty obnoxious sometimes, but not the greatest card. Long John Copper, kind of a big deal. Tripling into forces is a lot worse now because there's not that specific econ option. There are other econ options on 4 being or replacing it, but they're a lot more reliant on synergy. Reef Explorer, can't cheat out amalgams, which we'll talk about, the new one. Time Captain Hooktail, I think is actually a pretty big deal. It makes the stay down on 3 comps a lot less tempting, a lot less good. Vengeful Slitherer, I think not actually as bad as a card as some people think it is, but not really that big of a loss. Winged Chimera, kind of ran the meta for a little while. I think it was actually kind of in control. this last patch, but yeah, also a big loss. Poetic Pen Pal, not super thrilled about it being back, but I guess it has to. If you triple it, it is a stupid amount of gold, so look out for those high rolls. Imposing Percussionist, we'll talk about that one as it's included later. And Silent Swimmer makes Death Rattle builds way, way better because you can find this. It also makes the Spellcraft hero, I forget what her name is, but I'll put it on the screen. It makes her a lot better. And I think she might actually be somewhat viable after she was pretty irrelevant these last couple patches. So then we have new minions. First, Baron's Brawler tier 3 2/6 Battlecry. Get a random Death Rattle minion. I think this is kind of whatever. It's a good card to get on 3. You can buy it. It's 3 gold for 2 minions. It's pretty good. If you get a tier 3 on 3, you're probably very, very happy. You probably buy it whenever you see it in those, turn 3, turn 4. Or, sorry, not turn 3. Turn 4, turn 5. You probably buy it. After that, I think it's pretty irrelevant. I'll give it, 3 stars. It's fine. It's a card. Baron's Conjurer, kind of the same thing. It's a Death Rattle, so you can't, have this go out of control too fast. I think if you triple into it, if you find it early on 5, you're pretty happy picking it up. Otherwise, it's probably not staying on your board very long. Also, 3 stars. It's just a card, kind of like the last one. Arid Atrocity, tier 6 Amalgam, all. Death Rattle, summon a 7/7 golem, give it 7/7 for each friendly minion type that died this combat. I think this is a very solid card. I'm glad the Amalgam is back on 6 rather than being lower tier. I think it's better that way. I don't think you should be giving Amalgam too early. You can kind of attach all sorts of stuff that make it annoying. As for the actual card, I think it's going to be fine. It's going to be pretty good, I think. I'll give it a 4-star. It'll be very good with Cultist when you kind of need that mid-range power spike. I guess it's later than mid-range, but when you need that power spike and you don't quite have that one big demon online, maybe this can be that for you. And maybe it can be that comp in its entirety. You can build around this. I assume you can. So the next 2 cards I actually think are some of the best that are getting added. First is Prime Mate, tier 4 Beast Pirate. After a friendly Death Rattle minion dies, gain 1 gold next turn. I think this is actually really good. I think I'm going to give it 5 stars. I'm not sure if it's that good, but I do think the one problem, or one of the problems, the biggest problem I think, that Death Rattle spawn builds had is they just don't have an engine in terms of gold, in terms of finding more stuff. And this finally kind of gives it to them. If you play this with Mech Horse, if you play this with Rapscallion, you're getting so much money. It's probably not going to hurt you too bad tempo-wise, because hopefully at that point you have, an Eliza or a Goldrin. I guess that's thinking a little too far ahead. So maybe there is some tempo problems in the mid-game. But regardless, I think this gives Death Rattle builds and spawn builds something that I don't know that they've ever really had. I guess Laborer kind of gives it to you, but you'd have to sell off the minions. So I don't know. I think this is a very exciting card. I might be overrating it, but I think it's very good. Next is Gula Cabra. It's a tier 6 undead beast. This is kind of the replacement for Dead Stomper. Whenever you trigger a Death Rattle, give your minions +2/+2 permanently. I'm also giving this one 5 stars. I think this build is going to be very, very strong. I think Dead Stomper plus spawns was already pretty good, but the problem was it was pure tempo. It didn't give you anything over the long run, unless you had something like Laborer and then you transitioned. But this is actually giving permanent scaling to something that already has some pretty good mid-game tempo. And I think that's pretty scary. I think this is going to be maybe the defining build of the patch. I might be overrating it a little bit. I'm not sure if it's going to overtake Ellie's or stuff with Bran that has that engine instead. But I do think this is very promising. I'm very excited to play with it. I'm going to give it 5 stars. Next is Lock Prince, a tier 4 Murloc, 2/2. Whenever this gains stats, add +2/+2 to that amount, wherever this is. I'm not sure exactly how this works with certain things. I don't know if it tavern buffs, if it'll add that amount to the tavern buff. It might not. But it does synergize with pretty much all of the Murloc package. It's a pretty good mid-range Murloc that actually gives stats, unlike, I think, most of the package right now. I'll give it a 3-star. I don't think it's anything super special, but yeah. Next is Fairy Guildmother, a tier 4 Murloc, 1/5. At the end of your turn, get a random Murloc. I think this could be good, could be a little underwhelming. It does kind of give you that Primal Fin sort of effect where you can actually start generating Murlocs on tier 4 which might be good enough to make Murlocs playable, but it's also a 1/5 body, so you're probably going to run into some tempo problems in that immediate, unless you're tripling into this, in which case it's probably really good. But I'm going to give it 3 stars. Same with the Lock Prince. I'm not convinced this is going to be that strong. I'm not sure it's going to bring Murlocs back. I think the only thing that's really important with Murlocs is whether Primal Fin is 4 or 5. And until we are shown different, that's kind of my take on Murlocs. So 3 stars. I think Murlocs will be probably better, but not by that much. Crow's Nest Sentry, tier 3 pirate. Give your other pirates +3 health. I kind of wanted to hope that this would enable some tier 3 pirates. I don't think it really is going to do that, especially with Hooktail out. I think this is just something you're kind of happy cycling with Tethies, finding in the shop, maybe buying with Bran if you have a wide pirate board instead of, you know, the pirate elementals hybrid that we often see. But I think it's just fine. 3 stars. You like to cycle it. You like to see it in probably certain situations. But I don't think it's anything that's going to dictate how you play pirates. Next is Clunker Junker, tier 4 mech. Battlecry, choose a friendly mech. Discover a mech to magnetize to it. So I'm assuming that you can only discover magnetics, because otherwise it would be probably the strongest card, maybe the strongest card they've ever printed. I'm going to give it 5 stars regardless. I think even if it's only already magnetic minions that you can discover, it's very strong. But if it's not, if it's any mech, literally any mech, it is disgusting. Either way, 5 stars. Very good thing to either cycle, maybe you hold on to it and trigger battle cries with it. But yeah, either way, very strong. 3 little Quillbore, tier 5 Quillbore. Death Rattle, play 3 blood gems on your Quillbore. I think it's fine. I want this card to be good for some reason, but I'm not sure that it is. It's kind of interesting. I'm going to give it 2 stars. I think it could give you tempo when you might need it in the mid game if you triple into it. I don't think it's a build around card. Yeah, 2 stars. I'm not going to cover the duos only thing. This card seems pretty good. I'm not going to talk about it too much. Minion updates. King Bagurgle is a tier 5 Murloc. Back to tier 5, +3/+3. Pretty good change. Don't think it changes that much about Murlocs. I think the only thing, again, that matters is how early you can get Primal Fin. And you can't get it that early right now, so I think they're kind of in the middle tiers. And then lastly, Imposing Percussionist, tier 4 Demon. Battlecry, discover a demon. Deal damage to your hero equal to its tier. It's going to be good when you have Rewinder. There's something to be said about an Urzel comp with it. I'm not sure that's going to be that good. I'm still going to give it 4 stars actually, because it gives demons a way to generate themselves, which I think they badly needed. But I'm not that convinced about the Urzel comp. I think it's just something that you use to find whatever comp you're trying to play and then play it from there. And that's the end of the patch overview. If you enjoyed that, please consider subscribing. I also am live on Twitch every day from 2:30 to 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. I often go longer than that, but those are kind of my standard hours right now. I hope you guys are all excited for the patch, as excited as I am, and I will see you next time. Thank you.